Okay, we're live back again, still humming.
CD2 Congressional Special Race. Here we go. We've got Scott Reber. Scott Reber, you worked in the halls of Congress and those bureaucracies already. You've got some previous experience. You want to introduce yourself to our audience, please?
Sure thing. It's Reber, kind of
Reber.
like rebel. So just same kind of way. That's a big thing here in Dixie, the Dixie Rebels.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
And my parents, they're from this area. My mom's from St. George. She's a Crawford and the Dolls, and they got a bunch of farming in their family on their side. We got some cattlemen as well as potato farmers up in Enterprise. And then on my dad's side, he's from Mesquite. His dad was a cattle rancher as well as a alfalfa grower. They also did grapes as well. Um, this is St. George is where my family's from. But me, let's see, I'm born and raised in Utah. Um, I'm a small business owner here in St. George, where my wife and we have a small real estate rehabilitation and sales company. Both of us are realtors, so we work at Red Rock Real Estate, and then we flip houses. So she puts me to work, and I do a bunch of manual labor. She's been having me jackhammer a bunch of tile lately, and
Ooh.
luckily I get to take a little break from that, and I haven't because I don't enjoy that very much. But it's a little hard on your back and your hands, actually your whole body. But anyway, I don't really been moving drywall a lot lately, but it's fun because it's something that's honest and true work where you can see the fruits of your labors. And it's something that I really like. Is that a cat down there?
That is a dog.
It's a dog.
Yeah.
Okay.
Where's she at?
Oh, what a sweetie. So I
I don't know
got
if you
my
can really
little
call that a
mascot
dog,
here.
but
Yeah,
I got my little mascot here. Oh
this
my
comes
gosh.
from wolves, guys. This comes from wolves. Just so you know.
socially engineered after 10,000 years.
Yeah. Weighing in at 3 pounds. And
What's the dog's name?
Dozer.
Dozer. Oh my gosh.
Yep. Yep. She is a kind of a menace. Barks when you don't need her to. But anyways, yeah, no, I'm a handyman, and so I know what you're saying. Dave is a nemesis. I mean, a safety guy. So he is.
An OSHA warrior.
Anyways, we don't need to curse on this show today. This is a family.
Don't get us
show.
started on OSHA.
Yeah, but no, I think OSHA does some good things. I suppose I'll figure that out when I see one. But yeah, no, I'm with you. It does feel good because unlike the job you're trying to pursue, there's a finish to construction, to any of that. There's when you see what you start with and what you finish with, it's very rewarding.
100%. And for me, it's also kind of an analogy. Like we take homes that are broken or dilapidated or whatever. We go out and we find one. And we're like, okay, this one has potential. Let's fix this up. Like we can really make a good plan. And we just finished one downtown St. George, kind of near my parents' place. It was just an old condo that had just fallen in disrepair, and so we took it and flipped it and turned it into something that I didn't want to sell it because I was like, I put blood, sweat, and tears into this place, and I was like, can we rent it out, maybe? And my wife's like, no, we need to go on to our next project. So we're working on a different one right now, but it's kind of like Congress for me. Congress is something that is broken. They're not doing their jobs, and it makes me so mad because if we had a Congress that was well run, we wouldn't have to worry about debt ceilings or budgets or shutdowns or the deficit spending that leads to our huge debt. I mean, all of that stuff's just irresponsible and it's un-American. We should have the best run government in the world to be an example. But instead, we're beholden to other nations like China who own our debt. It's really frustrating. So
Yeah.
that's why I want to go. I want to go back and fix Congress, make these guys do their jobs.
Well,
'Cause they
on that
aren't.
note, what are your plans? What are you're going to step in day one? What's an initiative you're going to try to spearhead? We understand you're going to step in there with very little pull in Congress because you'll be the freshman member. I mean, essentially, I don't know if you walk in and they hand you like a boot shine kit and you sit outside with one of those special chairs.
I don't know, Jared. Yesterday he was naming off some pretty high profile names that he worked with, like Senator Loomis, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
You guys know Lummis or Senator Lummis? She's legit.
I
Really
would
like
say
her.
she's one of the big advocates for Bitcoin, so I'm assuming you know what that is too.
Sure do. I
Yeah.
would definitely be following her lead on a lot of that. She's been very highly involved in that. I really love the stuff that she's doing. And she's one of my favorite senators. I
Now
really
she's
like
out of
her.
Wyoming, correct?
Correct.
All
She's
right.
a true Wyoming.
So everyone, it's an introduction, and there is a state called Wyoming, and a few people do live there, and they actually have representatives. Last week, me and Dave took the effort and looked up. There is a governor of Wyoming. I don't remember his name off the top of my head. Never heard of him, which I like that about Wyoming. I kind of want to move there because you don't see him on MSNBC or CNN or Fox or probably even, I don't know, does Wyoming have TV stations? Does anyone know?
Of course they do.
Really?
I-
Are you sure? I imagine Wyoming, if you're in the Northeast, you watch, Nebraska radio or something.
They don't
Or
have
Nebraska-
cell phone reception. Last I drove through it.
South,
a
you
good
watch
thing.
Colorado. If you're in
Well,
Evanston, you watch Utah stuff.
Well, that's where you go to get fireworks, right?
No,
Yeah.
Well, and other
And other
beer.
things.
Yeah. That's where we used to go to get beer when I was a kid. We'd make a
Oh,
run up to
really?
Wyoming and get a keg.
There's a
But
lot of-
anyways,
Wyoming's a great state. Cynthia Lummis, she's great. I'm sure I'll be working with her if I get sent back to DC, especially on the Bitcoin issues. But yeah, well, let's see who else. I worked for Jim Risch of Idaho, good conservative. I handled quite a few issues for him. He's the chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee, so pretty important. Well, he was. Sorry, right now he's the ranking member because they're in the minority.
yeah.
And then I worked for Mia Love, which I think you guys know who she is.
Yes, yeah,
from
we're
Utah,
familiar.
so-
Yeah.
I've seen her on
Great.
CNN.
Yeah, Mia Love, there was quite a bit of circus surrounding her in both directions at all times. She was, I think she was a test run for how they were going to treat Green and Boebert. I think they learned a lot of lessons, and I really think she was.
Well, she did a lot of good work. One thing that I worked with her on, I handled her minority issues, and she was the only Republican member in the Black Caucus, which is a pretty powerful group of congressmen back in D.C. who represent Black issues and talk about those things. So she would go in there and explain where she was coming from. And one thing that we worked on together was the medical device tax. I don't know if you guys remember that, how all the medical devices got taxed a certain percentage under Obamacare.
Mhm.
And it was really driving research and development. Oh, shucks, I'm drawing a blank on the company out in Merit Medical out in West Valley in Salt Lake County. They had their headquarters there. And it was really hurting there. They're like, look, if you tax us, we can't do as much research and development to help, find new solutions to help people. And so that was something that we we pivoted how we were talking to Democrats, because it had to be a bipartisan win to get this tax repealed. Because if you tax these companies, they're going to make their bottom line. It's still going to come in. But
Yeah.
one thing that they'll do is pass the costs on to the customers, and that drives up healthcare costs, and
Yeah.
that leads to higher insurance premiums, and so it hurts the bottom line. It just hurts people.
On that note, how do we convince both parties and everyone, just the general populace, that corporate taxes are asinine? They really are, because corporations are going to make their money. And there's only two other places that they can recover that from. That's either the customer or paying the employee less. Corporate taxes are economy, they retard, there's a word I'm not allowed to say, an economy. They're not economy destroyers like, COVID was, or government response to COVID was, but they retard an economy. We need to do away with corporate tax. And I don't care how you write that up. If you want to take corporations' ability to donate money out of the system in order to do away with corporate tax. And I don't work for a corporation, nor do I own one, but I think corporate tax is just asinine.
Well, if you look at one thing that was really important in the tax reform that was passed in the House when I worked there was we have a lot of businesses that were leaving the United States.
Mhm.
Like they don't want to pay taxes, and if they can go somewhere else and avoid those taxes, they're going to do that. So when we decreased how much the corporate tax was, it incentivized these companies to either come back or to stay. So I don't want to scare away any companies from doing that, because that means less in our economy, and it hurts people like who need the jobs, like across the whole board.
Yeah.
So I'm on board with that.
I've heard in Ireland there's buildings that are rented out that are empty, but that are rented out by corporations as headquarters. No one's in them. And there's buildings, first floor is this company, second floor is this company, third, so on and so forth. And nobody's in them. They're just an empty building because Ireland doesn't carry a corporate tax. They actually give them incentives to go over there.
And that's what hey, props to them. If like you're a nation and you're taking advantage of that, like I don't blame them.
I mean,
They're
come on,
looking.
people. We're letting the potato eaters outdo us on freedom. Good hell.
It would be nice if all citizens of the world could shop and choose their country like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
If citizens could. Yeah, that's very true.
It was interesting. I was talking to my one of my boys the other day, and what was he talking about? He was so worried about the gender issue and how it's being pushed in schools. And he's grown up now. He's how is it? He's like 26, I think, and he was and he's like, Scott, like I think I'm gonna leave the country if this stuff starts coming. Like if California stuff that they're pushing on us starts coming out throughout the federal level, like I'm gonna look to go move to some island or something. I don't know. I really worry about where our country's headed. I agree with him.
I wonder if Little St. James is still up for sale.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's got some amenities already there. Probably amenities we don't know about. That would be a fun discovery. Maybe we'll see Geraldo Rivera open the safe there one day. But anyways, go on. No, I in a way I'm kind of with him, but then again, usually when you go see a circus, you buy a ticket and you sit in the stands, and you really don't get to see like the inside of the clown car and, smell the stool of the lion tamer. And we're in the circus right now, and it's kind of interesting to be inside of it. So I don't know, maybe I'll stick around.
The only problem is you can't get out. You buy a ticket, it's one way.
That's a good
You're
point.
sitting in that bleacher for the rest of your life.
That is a good point. And
it's the Hotel California.
yeah,
One way in, baby.
100%.
No way out.
So what are your plans? What are some of the initiatives you want to go there and kind of jump on board with or spearhead as soon as you get there?
So one thing that differentiates me from the other candidates is that I have the most experience in Congress. But not only did I work in the House, but I also worked in the Senate. Our other candidates, one worked in the House, one worked in the Senate. I did both for 5 different members, not just one. They only worked for one, really. So that's something that matters. So I've established networks and done a lot more than they have throughout my time there. I was in DC for 10 years. So uh, let me say really quick, I don't want to leave this country. I believe in this country and I want it to thrive. I want it to be a beacon of light to the rest of the world, just like Ronald Reagan said it should be. Um, and I think that's why I want to run. I want us to have the best run government. I want us to be the envy of the rest of the world, an example for them, so that we can set precedents for this to help the rest of the world. Because right now, China is pushing their influence all over the world. They scare me so much. They're playing the long game and they're kicking our trash. We're just getting over like, oh, whoa, we better wake up. They're taking over these countries in Africa and the Caribbean and South America and throughout the Asian parts. I mean, the loans that they're doing, they're just ridiculous. And then the countries can't pay them back. So then they're beholden to them for all these other stuff. Oh, anyways, that's a soapbox for later, I guess. I don't know. Are you guys worried about China? I mean, I assume you are, or what are your
I
thoughts?
would be had Mao not put the one child policy in. I think China's done. That's my opinion. China's got 10 years. They might be more erratic for the next 10 years, but they're done. That pyramid's going to turn upside down on working people to retired people, and then done.
You ever play Risk, Scott?
Oh, yes. I love that game.
Right? So the way I look at China and Russia, you got these green pieces over here and the red pieces down here, and America's got pieces all the way across the board. And those two pieces are talking to each other like they're going to team up on America. But do you know how that always works out? They always end up attacking each other in the end.
And not just that, but China has the little infantry guys and America has the actual artillery being dragged, you know? I mean, China hasn't, I just watched the thing. China hasn't figured out individual soldier night vision devices yet.
Stop it.
I just watched it. China hasn't figured it out yet.
I thought they sold them to us.
Actually, an American company got sued for $100 million 7 years ago for having China build some of the parts. Because that is a controlled item.
You're right, because I did try actually one time to, I think I was going to bring some out of the country, and I found out that it was illegal to do so.
Yep.
Now that I think about it, yeah.
Now AMPVS 7's probably fine. I mean, that's third generation, 1987 models. Sure. But AMPVS 14s? Mm-mm. And China hasn't figured that out yet. Yeah, the only thing China has is it has billions of people. It has no way of getting billions of people anywhere, but it has billions of people.
Unless it's across our border.
Which, yeah.
Which, by the way, Scott, I mean, we're asking everybody about the border. Mm-hmm. We're asking everybody about the border.
It's a big one.
Let me throw a little wrench into the question, though. Something that you haven't been asked yet. So currently, Mr. DeSantis, Representative DeSantis, Governor DeSantis, maybe president one day. He buses them to other places like New York.
Dave's from another country, so he can say that.
But when he does that, when he captures these illegals and then he's utilizing more resources yet to redistribute them to the other locations, he's using taxpayer money to do that. I mean, that's not free money. And in fact, like whenever we catch these illegals, we have to house them, we have to feed them, give them medical care. It's costing me money as a taxpayer. I don't want to pay money. I don't want to be subject to that kind of slavery. I'm wondering, is there a conservative methodology of dealing with the border problem that will not cost us so much money as taxpayers?
Well, I think one of the things that I really liked that Mike Lee did was he went to those countries, so Honduras, El Salvador, where the problems were happening, where the cartels were just destroying people's livelihoods, and they were basically being pushed into Mexico. But Mexico should be that country that accepts those refugees. But finding those problems and helping those nations kind of develop their own ways to deal with that, that's something that I want to do. I want to keep them where they're at, and find ways so that they don't have a need, a dire need, so they don't feel threatened to live in their homes, or because they refuse to work on a poppy farm, or whatever they have them doing. So those kinds of things are what I would focus on. Now, I think then we have to work with Mexico. Now, Mexico's a tricky thing. When I went and visited Mexico with the Drug Enforcement Agency, when I was working on the caucus on international narcotics control, they showed up to the airport in an armored car. And I'm like, whoa, what are we getting into here? And then we went in and had a briefing at the embassy saying how many people are getting abducted and how much corruption there is. The cartels are throughout that whole country. Of course, they stay away from the touristy spots where Americans come and spend all of their money.
Well,
So
they
have an
own the
agreement there.
touristy spots. That's their business side.
They do that too. So it's in their best interest to keep that going.
Mm-hmm.
So they protect those parts. But the rest of Mexico, oh my goodness, like it felt like I was going in a war zone. And the stuff that they were telling me about what was going on there, it scares me. They're our partners. We need to work with them to help fix their country, get it back in order where it's regular rule of law, where we don't have to worry about cartels. Sorry, go ahead.
Mexicans can't own guns, right? I mean, they don't have a Second Amendment.
Well, they can own guns. You just can't possess the gun you own.
So if that's the case, how do you help Mexicans if they can't own a gun? And how do you protect them from these people?
Well, they have one thing that the United States does do is it counsels them on their governance policies, like how best to govern, what checks and balances that you can put in place to make. Go ahead.
I knew this was coming.
So Biden goes down and tells El Presidente how to govern?
Not necessarily. It doesn't quite work like it's
no.
telling them
Let
how
me
to
live
govern.
in the dream, please. Don't burst this bubble because I want to watch that. I do know that the last Mexican president and Trump had very close relations. That him and Biden did not get along at all. That we lost relations with Mexico after Biden got in. I do know that. But I do want to see Biden down there, like just Bidenizing the whole, here's what you got to do. That sounds fantastic.
Well, let's hear what Scott has to say about doing stuff.
Sorry, I keep dragging us into the weeds. We're in hour 3.
So they have these entities that they offer their services, and they're like, hey, if you guys want to, you come check this out. Like, this is optional. We don't want to force this down your throat, but this is what we do in the United States. So I also went to Panama, and this trip kind of juxtaposed, like it should, okay, look, here's Panama, here's Mexico. Very different countries. Panama listens to us. They have pretty good transparency on their democracy, and their police are good. They're not corrupt. And then Mexico, on the other hand, they have a lot of issues, and that's internal, but they're willing to listen and kind of not telling them what to do, but just saying, hey, this could be better, and kind of coaching on them on those issues is really useful. Mexico has, I don't know if you know about their police system. It's really messed up.
Federales.
The federales, but then you also have all these local police, and then they always clash, and then it's like, well, who's corrupt with who, and who's in charge really, who has jurisdiction, and then you have the cartels on top of that, so it's just really a big mess. Mm-hmm. So making sure that you set up systems to check those police, to make sure that they don't get out of hand, and weeding out the corruption is probably one of the biggest priorities.
Yeah, that's a tough one. In Mexico, the cartels have more money than the state. That's always a complicated figure to work into. You'll move from city to counties where in some counties the county sheriff works for one cartel. The federales who cover into the next county work for a different cartel, but the city police proper work for another cartel. Also, and it has to be admitted, and it's tough, but the birth of the cartels comes from what's called El Ticarios. And that was bootleggers from Prohibition. They're the exact same families, the exact same groups, and using the exact same lines and methods. Our war on drugs has built a black market, and how do we safely account for that?
Well, in my work with the DEA, they talked a lot about fentanyl. And most of the products that come from they come from China. They come through Mexico. They're then processed and made, and then they're snuck into the United States. And then, of course, they count for the hundreds of thousands of deaths across the whole United States. That was one of the biggest problems, and that's when you need to go to China, which Trump did, and he said, "Look, this is a big problem, and we need it to stop." Now it stopped. China took some serious efforts, but then they kind of backtracked it for after that. So I don't know where current negotiations are at, or what kind of posturing they're doing to be like, hey, let's stop this. I don't know where they're at. I'm not privy to that because I haven't been in DC for a few years. And so that's something I would go straight to the DEA about. I'd be like, give me an update on this. I need a briefing, because stopping that channel from China to Mexico will stop the fentanyl from coming in by an astronomical margin. When almost 90+%, I think it's 99% comes from China, all of those chemicals. We just need to stop it. So that would be a priority for me.
Do we know what recreational drugs the fentanyl is going into predominantly?
Predominantly. I don't know what the latest stuff is. I just know that they lace stuff up with it all the time. And then you don't know what you're taking. And then it just comes and gets you. It's just a huge mess.
Do they have a fentanyl problem in Portugal where drugs are legal? I guess would be a piggyback question on that.
Yeah, the question is fentanyl's over here, from my understanding, as a replacement for opioids because it's cheaper and less exposure to transport across the border. Just because it's smaller, you can carry a smaller package. But that is a good question. Is fentanyl a problem in Portugal, where Portugal did a drastic change on their war on drugs?
They just took I don't know. I haven't really looked into that issue.
Yeah, I've Googled it a couple times, and there's really not much advertised out there on it. I mean, sometimes they say no news is good news
on fentanyl.
Well, just what has happened in Portugal for the drug.
Oh yeah,
issue.
Portugal. Yeah, Portugal.
It's almost like it went away.
Well, Portugal did it in 2004, and since then they've had. I think year one they had one overdose, and they haven't had one since, which is wild. They eliminated overdoses in their drug market, but that's something I think you should look into. I wouldn't count on me to explain anything because you'll have a messed up system because I'm a moron with an IQ of 47.
48.
I don't believe that for a second. What are you guys talking about? You guys are informed. I can't believe some of the stuff you're saying. This is great.
But that's something to look into, what Portugal did. And it's been kept quiet, and no other government wants to look at it because it changes empowerment from one scope that most governments love to a different scope, which no government loves.
You ain't going to get MRAPs in Portugal if you're not fighting a drug war.
Yeah.
And those MRAPs are pretty freaking cool.
Yeah. We just got one here in Tooele a year ago.
Really? I still haven't
months
been
ago.
in it.
Wow. When it first showed up, I saw it on Main Street every day. It was like, we're going to use this for patrol.
Mm-hmm.
Look at this, 2 miles to the gallon. Man, I'm the biggest thing on the road. But anyways,
Yes, that's a good
Hey,
topic. We haven't talked about that.
yeah.
well, okay. Hey, if I get elected, I'm going to come out to Tooele and we're going to check out that MRAP. I'm going to invite you guys. Okay,
Heck
we're going
yeah.
to go and check it out. Let's do it.
We're even friends with the sheriff, and he
Let's
hasn't
do
brought us into his MRAP.
what?
I know.
We should be doing the show from the MRAP.
Seriously. Like hanging out the top of
Hey,
it.
let's do it. Next
Yeah.
show, MRAP. Let's do it. I'm
Yeah.
in.
But
Yeah.
like,
Oh,
let's go on. Like, what are, you've got some focuses, you know, like, is there dreams of appointments you'd like to get into? Like if you'd want to get on the judicial, is there, I don't know. I don't even really know how that works, but do you go there? Do you get it, beg McCarthy, hey, let me go on to this committee. I would love to be a part of this, or, is that how it works? Or do they just kind of pull a straw out of a hat?
well, there's a lot of backdoor dealing, so to say, insider baseball. Um, for me, strategically, I would look at where our delegation would be able to make the biggest impact. Where's it missing? So like Senator Lee, he's already on judiciary. So I
Yeah.
think he's got that pretty well covered. But he's not on the Commerce Committee anymore after he tried that stunt with Rick Scott to oust Mitch McConnell. So I think they kicked him off of the Commerce Committee. One thing that's really important in Utah is the Transportation Committee. So I would probably look at joining that one. Now, that's a pretty important committee in Congress. So getting in as a freshman, that'll be kind of tricky. I don't know if McCarthy will let me do it, but he might be open to it, considering how important Chris Stewart was on appropriations. I'd love
Yeah.
to get on the Appropriations Committee too, but I don't think as a freshman they let you on. But who knows?
Now, if you're on the transportation committee, do you get to work hand in hand with Buttigieg? Because that's another entertaining, sphere.
Careful what you ask for. Hand in hand with him might lead
Okay.
somewhere else.
In your case, hand in glove. But no, I mean, because transportation this year has been extremely important, and I should say the last 2 years has been pretty catastrophist. I mean, he got that appointment. He thought, man, this is the skatiest job you can get. It can't be better. That's like being in the Department of Grass will grow if you water it. And boom, airplanes are freaking backed up. Boom, trains blow up. Boom, bridges fall apart. And he's like, I mean, he's got to be like, what the heck? What did you guys do to me?
Well, I don't feel bad for him because
Not a
he's
bit.
getting what he asked for. So
Yeah, not a bit.
hey, you take that job, you got to deal with that. One thing that I do know is I do know how to work with the Department of Transportation. One thing in particular I did work on with them was at the Tooele Army Depot, the Deseret UAS unmanned traffic, or the UTM, the traffic management program that they were working there. When I was in Mia Love's office, we were all behind that. Like I went to so many meetings for that with the Department of Transportation to make sure that we could make sure there was some funding available. It was up for grabs. And I was like, look, I don't support creating new programs that spend more money, but if there's money up for grabs for anybody, I'm going to lobby as hard as I can to make sure that comes back to Utah. So that was one of the things I learned from my old boss, Raul Labrador. He's like, look, I'm not going to be advocating for any spending. We need to decrease our spending and fix programs. But if there's money that's up for grabs, I will fight hard, tooth and nail, to make sure it comes back to our taxpayers and not some crazy place out in California or somewhere else like that. We deserve our fair share.
Yeah. Yeah, for
Anyway,
sure.
hey, give me an update on the Tooele Army Depot, because I haven't been out there in a while. I haven't had a reason to, since I'm not working on those issues anymore.
Dave works there. Give us an update, Dave. We got a new colonel. That's what I know.
You know, I wish I could give you an update, but I'd have to kill you.
It went top secret, went into the dark.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you just use your imagination. I mean, think about all the international things going on right now and what that Army Depot does, and that's why we wouldn't talk about it.
Oh, so what are your thoughts on Ukraine right now? Like, where do you stand on how we've been managing Ukraine? Do you think we've been on par? Should we do more? Should we scale back? What are your thoughts on that?
For me, I'm a little conflicted. We need to stand, first of all, with other democracies throughout the world. We need to support them because uh, they help mitigate and help stop bad players. And now, not only that, it increases freedom throughout the world. I mean, we need to make sure that people have those freedoms. That's why I love being an American. We stand for the correct things that help people live good lives. Um, Now, we should help them, but at the same time, we should have accountability and transparency on what is going on in Ukraine. Where is our money going? How are they using all of this equipment? Or is corruption rampant? Like, are they just taking it and selling it to somebody else? I don't know. So transparency and accountability is something that I want to make sure is so that we're not wasting taxpayer dollars.
Mm.
So, do you think America should recognize Somaliland as a country? How about that one? Is that a tough one?
Um, I'm trying to think. South Sudan has some issues going on. I'm not. Did something happen that I missed?
Yeah, it's a complicated one, I suppose. But Somalia is divided up into different sections that were ruled by the Italians and the British. And
Yeah.
Somaliland has actually done a really great job of making a democracy for what a Muslim country can make a democracy out of. And then Somalia is it's a rough and tumble warlord area. Yet America still won't recognize Somaliland, and it's been an ongoing feud that I would say it's kind of a fun one to actually just look into. It's on par. It's on par of should we recognize Taiwan, but with a lot less repercussion than would suffer if we did.
There's a big question. Here's a big one on how the butter's churned. Is the recognition of Taiwan versus China as, China, is that handled by the State Department or is that something Congress has a say in?
Congress definitely has a say in. And when
Uh-huh.
you have Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House, going to Taiwan and pissing off all the Chinese dignitaries or the government by doing that, we do have a role. And not
Yeah.
only that, Congress has oversight of our missions that are out in different foreign countries.
There's a
So,
committee on Taiwan in Congress.
Yeah, but
and
I just wonder because it was unilateral through the State Department that they converted to recognizing China versus Taiwan. I believe that was under Kissinger.
yeah,
But I'm wondering if Congress has a say in that. If enough congressmen started feeling like, you know what, we're not happy with China. I mean, this would have been the perfect opportunity under Pelosi because Pelosi, against Biden's wishes, went to Taiwan. And because he was worried that was going to obviously ratchet up tensions. But because we quit recognizing Taiwan, I want to say in the early 80s, and started recognizing China proper, I think was the culmination of uh, Tricky Dick. So I wonder if Congress can weigh that scale. Do they allow them to I don't know, adjust State Department policy?
so they have oversight and responsibility for how the State Department runs, but the
Mm-hmm.
executive runs that department.
Mm-hmm.
So most of this does rest with whoever's in the Oval Office. And so Congress does have a role. Um, like we have oversight. We're responsible for it. So we need to make sure that not only that the president's doing their job, but they're not doing a job that the American people don't want, and hold
Mm.
them accountable for it. Taiwan is so important to us. I represented the chairman of Senator Risch when I led a delegation over there to learn about not only drug issues, but how they were tightly interwoven with our economy here. Taiwan really wants to keep those relationships. And anybody who knows, like John Curtis, I think he went on his mission there. He
Yeah.
speaks Mandarin Chinese. I mean, this guy knows it better than anyone. So he's I really like what he's been doing on Taiwan. He's really smart about it. I wish I spoke Chinese because then I could
Yeah.
do a greater impact there.
Careful what you wish for.
Careful what you.
Well, no, it is an interesting conundrum, and I don't even have an opinion on it. I don't know if it all has to do with how the United Nations works. That's where it tends to work. But if you, it was our switch from Taiwan to mainland China in the United Nations, and we did that. Russia had started doing it before that, and for some reason we said, oh, I shouldn't say Russia. I apologize. The USSR, United Socialist sycophants of Russia. Anyways, they did it first, and then we kind of followed their lead because we had opened up trade with China, which was, I'm not going to say good or bad, but it does make me wonder. That's when Taiwan became a target again for China.
Yes, they did. Taiwan is critical to us. I mean, we rely on so much from them, especially when it comes to technology and chips.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things that Senator Risch and I helped work on, was to make sure that we want to make sure that COVID exposed a lot of things. It showed how we don't have the infrastructure to provide for basic needs when it comes to drugs, when it comes to microchips and all these different things. And those things, like that scares me. Our country should be self-sufficient. We shouldn't be relying on other countries. It's in our best interest in national security to have those things protected.
For sure. I agree. I do agree. Definitely. I'm more of a free market person. Let's face it, our government has done a lot of things to restrict the growth of those markets over here and emboldened them to move to China, where they've given tax incentives if you build stuff in China and then have it shipped here. And I don't know in what back room that was dreamed up, but I mean, it was dreamed up a long time ago. I don't know if we can necessarily blame any of our legislators now, but it came and bit us in the butt hard, and we've got to shut those incentives down. And that is the one really good thing that I think Trump worked on.
That he did. He drew some lines that were really good. One thing that he doesn't get credit for is his foreign policy.
Yep.
And he did pretty good on it.
Yeah. Well, it was also an internal policy. His tax breaks, I know it was awful. It made the rich richer. No, one of the things that was in there is he gave tax incentives to operate and manufacture in the United States.
That was good. Hey, I like that.
Tax incentives always help the economy in much better ways than higher taxes will ever do, and collecting government funds and redistributing it. It's just more efficient that way when we get to spend our own money.
It's crazy. Democrats don't understand these simple things, that tax what you don't want and incentivize what you do. And they think that if they blow the doors on taxes on corporations and people who make, that those people are going to stick around and continue to make us the great nation that we're supposed to be.
Very true. And they just don't see it. They see it as these people or these companies and people are rich. And they just want to take it away from them and redistribute them in the way that they see fit. And of course, no government program does well. Like the Social Security, I think, is the closest thing to being efficient. And they send checks to dead people all the time. All they do is send checks. Give me a break. Like, can you at least update your records? Like, do something to figure this stuff out.
A Ponzi scheme's got a Ponzi. That's all I'm going to say on that. But no, you're right. I I think that the Democrat Party today, the Democrat Party of today, not the Democrat Party of the 80s, the Democrat Party of today is the culmination of the Department of Education.
Wow, that's a big
Just
claim.
just that.
That's it. They preach everything that they teach little first graders about how to make a polite and perfect society. Just simple answers that don't fix anything.
Well, the Department of Education is something that I don't think it should be that way. I think it should be local decisions. I don't want some, like, anything that has to do with one size fits all policy. I'm very scared of. Like, that is not the way our democracy should work. It takes away our freedom when you consolidate power to the big government. I believe in bringing it back to the states, because less big government means it increases your freedom and makes more local decisions. That's what I want.
I like it. Yeah.
Do you want to give any closing statements before we shut the show down?
Give us your biggest spiel. Give us your selling point.
Tell me what you're worth.
One thing, when you guys were at the debate yesterday, that I don't know if I focused on it well enough, but I want to talk about, is that I will be in your communities. If I get the nomination, I will be in Tooele, like, in the next week. Like, I will be in Enterprise, Utah. I will go to Delta, Utah. I'll go to Dugway. Like, that's where I played basketball and got my nose broken once. I'll never forget it.
Hold on. You played basketball in, like, high school basketball?
That's right. Small school, 1A.
Good heck. 1A. I thought Dugway was 0.3A.
Well,
like the basketball game comes out and the teacher comes out and points at the one boy and says, "You can sit it out tonight. Everyone else on the court."
They got a nice basketball court though now.
Well, I'm sure, because
do.
they only have 7 people that run on it at any given time.
yeah. Now, how many of the candidates have actually been to Dugway? Probably
That's a good question.
none.
The one Navy guy has. He can't stop talking about Dugway. He loves
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Scott? Oh, man. I'll
Now-
have to talk to him about it.
How about Callio?
Callio.
Uh-huh.
I have not been there.
Okay, you should look up Callio. But go on. Finish your selling point.
So the one thing that I know how to do is I know how to go and find out what's going on in communities. I will be super involved throughout the whole district. That's one thing that I pride myself on. Like, I have a plan on what I'm going to have my staff help me do so that I know what's going on in the district. I'm going to have them call regularly any business throughout the state and make sure that I hear what's going on and how I can best help them. A lot of people just don't know that their congressmen and senators are there to help them, but they don't know how they can help them. So raising awareness about that is really critical. And that's something that I did in my previous work in Congress. I mean, the Senator Risch, just barely, like, when I was there, he's like, "I need you to go to Utah. I need you to go to Idaho and just spend a few weeks and drive the whole entire state and meet with every single hospital to find out what is going on there with COVID. I need some truth and transparency there." And so that's what I did. I just had a rental car, drove around the whole state, stopped in every single hospital, met with their CEOs and all the different people. And they told me what was going on, where they needed help, what was true, what was not true about COVID, and what they faced. So by getting that really grunt work to make sure that I know what's going on, I promise I will do that. I will be in your community. I will not forget anybody that I represent. And my door will always be open for people to come and talk to me.
That's a good message. That's a good message. All right, everyone. Scott Reber, like rebel, but with an R. Yes. And you can go check out his website. It's www.scottreber, the number 4, utah.com. That's Scott Reber, the number 4, utah.com. Go check him out. Of course, you can go into the show notes. There'll be a hot link in there. You can just click on it. It'll take you right to his website. thank you for coming on. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for running. Thank you for proffering up your well-being and your, I don't know,
Sanity.
your sanity. You know, you still have a full head of hair. We see what politics do to politicians.
It'll turn gray.
Yeah, but thank you. You know, and should you win, I mean, that's 4 years that you've taken on the burden of carrying the torch for the people of Utah. But thank you for putting yourself forward as it, and and we will see you on Saturday.
Great. I can't wait to see you guys again. And this was a great conversation. I am so impressed. You guys, we got to do this again and go do some MRAPs, okay?
Yeah, hey,
Right.
we're down with that. I wonder if they'll
Okay.
let us drive. Take turns.
You'll have to pay for the gas.
Oh, dude, but diesel prices have dropped. Man, diesel was $3.15 today.
I don't want to hear it.
Wow.
I paid $5 for gas when I was in Washington over there last weekend.
Ooh.
I know.
Horrible.
Can't we just declare them in New York foreign countries? Please. All right. Scott, thank you very much. Thanks again. Thanks for coming on. And you have a wonderful night, man.
Take care.
Thank you for taking the time. This means a lot to me to have this voice to be heard in Tooele and beyond. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Outstanding. All
Thank
right,
you.
everyone. Have a good night. And who knows when we'll be back on. It's been a crazy 2 weeks. All right, man. Take
Have
her
a good
easy.
See you Saturday. Bye-bye.
Yeah. Bye.